Maya Chun pressed her body flat against the cold concrete of the rooftop, her breathing shallow and controlled. 23 floors below, the morning traffic moved through downtown like blood through veins. She had been lying in this same position for 3 hours, waiting for the convoy that would change everything. Her fingers traced the smooth metal of the rifle scope one more time. The weapon beside her wasn't the kind you could buy at any store. It had taken her 6 months to acquire all the parts, another 2 months to assemble it perfectly. Every piece had been purchased from different suppliers across 3 states. Maya was nothing if not careful. The sun climbed higher, casting long shadows across the city. Maya checked her watch again. The convoy should appear any minute now. She had memorized their route weeks ago, studying traffic patterns, timing lights, calculating every possible variable. The target would pass directly below her position at exactly 11:47 a.m. Maya's story didn't start on this rooftop. It began 3 years earlier in a small apartment across town, where she lived with her younger brother Danny. They had been orphans since Maya was 16 and Danny was 12. She had fought through the system to keep them together, working 3 jobs while finishing high school, then putting herself through college while Danny grew up. Danny was special, not in the way people say when they're being polite, but genuinely brilliant. At 15, he could solve math problems that stumped college students. He built computers from scraps he found in dumpsters behind electronics stores. Maya knew her brother would do something amazing with his life if given the chance. That chance came in the form of a scholarship to Preston Academy, the most exclusive private school in the state. Danny's test scores had caught the attention of their admissions board. The full ride would cover everything: tuition, books, even room and board. For the first time in years, Maya allowed herself to hope. Danny thrived at Preston Academy. His grades were perfect, his teachers loved him, and he finally had access to the kind of resources that matched his intellect. Maya worked extra shifts at her job as a medical technician to cover the small expenses the scholarship didn't handle, but she didn't mind. Seeing her brother happy made every sacrifice worthwhile. The trouble started during Danny's second year. He came home for winter break acting strange, quieter than usual. Maya pressed him for details, but Danny insisted everything was fine. He seemed nervous, looking over his shoulder when they walked down the street. Maya chalked it up to academic pressure. When Danny returned to school after the break, Maya didn't hear from him for 2 weeks. That was unusual. They normally talked every other day. When she finally reached him, Danny sounded distant, almost robotic. He assured her everything was okay, but Maya knew her brother better than anyone. Something was very wrong. The call came on a Tuesday morning in February. Maya was getting ready for work when the phone rang. The voice on the other end identified himself as Dr. Richards, the headmaster at Preston Academy. "Miss Chun, I'm afraid I have some terrible news about Daniel." Maya's world stopped. The words that followed came through a haze of disbelief. Danny was dead. They found his body at the bottom of the school's bell tower. Preliminary investigation suggested suicide. Maya dropped the phone and collapsed to her knees on the kitchen floor. The funeral was small. A few teachers from Preston Academy attended, offering their condolences and speaking about what a bright future Danny had ahead of him. Their words felt empty to Maya. If Danny had such a bright future, why would he throw it away? Maya threw herself into finding answers. She visited Preston Academy, demanding to speak with Danny's roommate, his teachers, anyone who had contact with him in those final weeks. What she found didn't make sense. Danny's grades had actually improved. His teachers described him as focused and determined. His roommate said Danny seemed excited about a special project he was working on. None of this sounded like a boy planning to end his own life. The official investigation was brief and conclusive. Daniel Chun, age 17, died by suicide. Case closed. But Maya couldn't accept it. She hired a private investigator with money she didn't have, a retired police detective named Frank Morrison. Frank was thorough. He interviewed students and staff, examined Danny's room, and reviewed all the evidence the police had collected. What he found made Maya's blood run cold. 3 other students at Preston Academy had died under mysterious circumstances over the past 5 years. All were scholarship kids from poor families. All were exceptionally gifted. All were ruled suicides despite having no history of mental health issues. Frank dug deeper. He discovered that Preston Academy received significant funding from Blackwood Industries, a massive defense contractor. The The school's science building had been renovated with Blackwood money. Several of the academy's board members had direct ties to the company. The pieces started coming together when Frank found Danny's hidden journal in his dorm room. The entries from his final weeks revealed a horrifying truth. Danny and the other gifted students hadn't been chosen for their academic promise. They had been selected as test subjects. Blackwood Industries was developing a new kind of psychological conditioning program, designed to create perfectly loyal operatives for military and intelligence work. The process involved advanced neurofeedback techniques, subliminal programming, and experimental drugs. The goal was to create soldiers who would follow orders without question, no matter how morally questionable. Danny's journal described months of special tutoring sessions that left him feeling confused and disoriented. He wrote about memory gaps, strange dreams, and a growing sense that something was being done to his mind. In his final entry, Danny wrote that he had figured out what was happening and planned to expose everything. He never got the chance. Maya read her brother's journal 3 times before the full horror of what had happened truly sank in. Danny hadn't committed suicide. He had been murdered to protect Blackwood's secret program. The other students had likely met the same fate when they became too aware of what was being done to them. Frank's investigation confirmed Maya's worst fears. The defense contractor had been using Preston Academy as a front for their illegal human experimentation program. Brilliant young minds were being destroyed in the name of creating the perfect soldier. Maya wanted to go to the authorities, to the media, to anyone who would listen. Frank shook his head sadly. Blackwood Industries had too much power, too many connections. The story would be buried, and Maya would likely end up like her brother if she pushed too hard. But Maya couldn't let it go. Danny deserved justice. Those other murdered children deserved justice. She spent the next year planning, learning, preparing herself for what needed to be done. Maya quit her job and used her savings to travel. She told people she needed time to grieve, but her real purpose was much darker. She visited military bases, gun ranges, and private training facilities across the country. She learned to shoot, to fight, to plan operations like a professional soldier. She also researched Blackwood Industries extensively. The company's CEO was Marcus Blackwood, a former CIA director who had built his fortune on classified government contracts. He lived in a fortress-like mansion outside the city, surrounded by private security. Getting to him directly would be impossible. But Maya was patient. She studied Blackwood's schedule, his habits, his security protocols. She learned that once a month, he traveled into the city for a board meeting at Blackwood's downtown headquarters. The convoy carrying him always took the same route, at the same time, with the same security detail. That convoy would pass directly below the building where Maya now lay waiting. Her plan was simple but devastating. The rifle beside her was loaded with a single armor-piercing round, designed to penetrate the bulletproof glass of Blackwood's limousine. Maya had practiced the shot hundreds of times at remote locations across 3 states. She could hit a target the size of a quarter from this distance. The sound of approaching sirens pulled Maya from her memories. She pressed her eye to the scope and saw the convoy turning onto the street below. 3 black SUVs followed by an armored limousine, then 2 more SUVs. Standard protection formation for a high-value target. Maya's breathing slowed as years of preparation kicked in. She tracked the convoy's movement through her scope, calculating wind speed and bullet drop. The limousine would be in perfect position in 30 seconds. She thought about Danny as her finger found the trigger. Her brilliant, kind, innocent brother who had deserved so much better than what the world had given him. Maya had failed to protect him when he needed her most. She wouldn't fail him now. The convoy drew closer. Maya could see the bulletproof windows of the limousine clearly now. Behind that glass sat the man who had ordered her brother's death. The man who had turned gifted children into experiments and then discarded them when they became inconvenient. 20 seconds. Maya's world narrowed to the crosshairs in her scope. Everything else faded away. The sounds of the city, the wind on the rooftop, even her own heartbeat. There was only the target and the justice she was about to deliver. 10 seconds. The limousine passed beneath a street light, and Maya caught a glimpse of movement behind the rear passenger window. Marcus Blackwood was reading documents, completely unaware that his reckoning had arrived. 5 seconds. Maya's finger tightened on the trigger. Years of grief, rage, and careful planning culminated in this single moment. Danny's journal was in her backpack, along with copies of all the evidence Frank had gathered. After the shot, she would broadcast everything to news outlets across the country. Blackwood's death would be just the beginning. The limousine rolled into perfect position. Maya held her breath and squeezed the trigger. The rifle kicked against Maya's shoulder as the shot rang out across the city. For a split second, everything seemed frozen in time. Then, chaos erupted in the streets below. The armor-piercing round punched through the limousine's rear window with devastating precision. Maya watched through her scope as the vehicle swerved violently, tires screaming against asphalt. The driver fought for control, but the heavy car was already careening toward the sidewalk. The limousine slammed into a fire hydrant with tremendous force. Water exploded into the air as the front end crumpled. The convoy's escort vehicles immediately went into emergency protocol, SUVs screeching to stops while armed security personnel poured out onto the street. Maya rolled away from the scope and grabbed her backpack. Phase 1 was complete, but she had maybe 90 seconds before security forces would start searching nearby buildings. She had planned her escape route carefully, but everything depended on precise timing. She sprinted across the rooftop toward the service ladder that led to the building's internal stairwell. Behind her, she could hear the wail of sirens growing louder. Police, ambulances, and probably federal agents were already racing toward the scene. The stairwell was empty, just as Maya had expected. This office building was largely vacant, another casualty of the economic downturn. She had chosen it specifically for that reason. Fewer witnesses meant a cleaner getaway. Maya descended the stairs 3 at a time, her footsteps echoing in the concrete shaft. At the 15th floor, she stopped and pulled a janitor's uniform from her backpack. She had stolen the outfit from a laundry service 2 weeks earlier. In 60 seconds, she transformed from sniper to cleaning lady. The transformation included more than just clothes. Maya pulled her long black hair into a tight bun and applied heavy makeup that aged her by 15 years. Thick-rimmed glasses and a slight hunch completed the disguise. Years of studying surveillance footage had taught her that people rarely remembered janitors and cleaning staff. Maya took the elevator down to the 3rd floor, then switched to the service stairs again. The building's emergency exits opened onto an alley that connected to the city's maintenance tunnel system. She had spent months mapping those tunnels, timing security patrols, and identifying the optimal escape routes. As she pushed through the emergency exit, Maya could hear the mayhem continuing on the street. Shouting voices, radio chatter, and the distinctive sound of helicopter rotors approaching from the east. The city's entire emergency response network was converging on the scene. The maintenance tunnels were dark and narrow, lit only by occasional emergency lighting. Maya moved quickly but carefully, following a route she had memorized and practiced dozens of times. These tunnels connected to the subway system 6 blocks away. From there, she could disappear into the city's underground transportation network. But first, she had a message to deliver. Maya stopped at a predetermined location and pulled a secure satellite phone from her backpack. She had purchased the device through a series of intermediaries, routing the transaction through multiple shell companies. The phone was programmed to connect to a specialized service that would simultaneously broadcast her message to every major news outlet in the country. She pressed record and began speaking into the device's camera. "My name is Maya Chun. 30 minutes ago, I killed Marcus Blackwood, CEO of Blackwood Industries. This was not an act of terrorism or random violence. This was justice for my brother Danny and 3 other children who were murdered to cover up illegal human experimentation." Maya held up Danny's journal, its pages filled with her brother's handwriting. "These are the words of my 15-year-old brother, describing months of psychological torture disguised as education. Blackwood Industries used Preston Academy as a front for developing mind control techniques on gifted children. When these kids figured out what was happening, they were murdered and their deaths staged as suicides." She showed additional documents to the camera, Frank's investigation notes, financial records linking Blackwood Industries to Preston Academy, and medical records that prove the experimental drugs found in the students' systems. "I am uploading all evidence to secure servers around the world. The truth about what happened to these children will be preserved, even if I don't survive to see justice fully served. But Marcus Blackwood's death is only the beginning. Every person involved in this program will be held accountable. Maya ended the recording and activated the broadcast system. Within minutes, her message would be transmitted to newsrooms across the globe. The evidence files would automatically upload to multiple secure servers, ensuring the information could never be completely suppressed. She destroyed the satellite phone and continued through the tunnels toward the subway system. Above ground, the investigation into Blackwood's assassination was just beginning, but Maya knew she had maybe an hour before her identity was discovered and her face appeared on every screen in the city. The subway platform was crowded with afternoon commuters, exactly as Maya had planned. She boarded a train heading toward the industrial district, keeping her head down and maintaining the posture of a tired cleaning woman heading home from work. As the train pulled away from the station, Maya caught a glimpse of the news playing on the platform's television screens. Emergency broadcasts were already interrupting regular programming. The assassination of Marcus Blackwood was the biggest story in years. Maya's next destination was a storage unit on the city's south side. She had rented the space under a false identity months earlier, using it to stockpile supplies for the next phase of her campaign. Blackwood's death would send shockwaves through his organization, but the company itself would survive unless she struck again quickly. The storage unit contained weapons, ammunition, surveillance equipment, and detailed intelligence on 12 other Blackwood Industries executives. Maya had spent the better part of a year assembling profiles on everyone involved in the human experimentation program. Blackwood might have been the head of the snake, but the body was still alive and dangerous. Maya's phone buzzed with news alerts as she changed into civilian clothes. The media was already speculating about the shooter's identity and motives. Some reports suggested foreign terrorism, others pointed to corporate espionage. None had connected the attack to Preston Academy yet, but that would change once her broadcast reached the networks. She packed a smaller backpack with essential supplies and selected her next weapon, a compact submachine gun that could be concealed under a winter coat. Maya's target for tonight was Dr. Sarah Vance, Blackwood's head of research and the scientist who had designed the mind control protocols used on the children. Dr. Vance lived in a secure high-rise apartment building downtown, protected by the same private security firm that had failed to save Blackwood. Maya had been watching the building for weeks, studying the guards' routines and identifying vulnerabilities in their coverage. The evening news was already carrying Maya's broadcast as she rode the bus toward downtown. Her face appeared on screen for the first time, along with the damning evidence about Preston Academy. The story was spreading faster than even Maya had expected. She watched passenger reactions as the truth about the murdered children unfolded on the small screen above the bus driver. People were shocked, outraged, horrified. Some called for government investigations. Others wondered how many more children had been victims of similar programs. Maya felt a grim satisfaction. The world was finally hearing Danny's story. His death, and the deaths of the other children, would not be forgotten or covered up. But she also knew that powerful people would be working to discredit her message and protect themselves from the fallout. The bus stopped 2 blocks from Dr. Vance's building. Maya got off and walked through the downtown shopping district, just another woman heading home after work. The streets were busier than usual, filled with people discussing the day's shocking news. Maya caught fragments of conversations as she passed. "Can you believe what they did to those kids? I always knew there was something wrong with these defense contractors. That woman is a hero for exposing this." Maya wasn't sure about the hero part, but she was pleased that people seemed to believe her story. The evidence she had released was thorough and compelling. It would be difficult for Blackwood Industries to dismiss or discredit. Dr. Vance's apartment building was a sleek glass tower that rose 30 stories above the street. Maya had already identified the building's security cameras and blind spots during her surveillance. She knew the guards' shift changes, the maintenance schedule, and the building's emergency protocols. Maya entered through a service entrance, using an access card she had cloned from a legitimate maintenance worker. The building's security system logged her entry as a routine cleaning service visit. She took the service elevator to the 28th floor, where Dr. Vance's penthouse apartment was located. The hallway was empty and dimly lit. Maya moved quietly toward apartment 28A, checking for security cameras or motion sensors. Dr. Vance had upgraded her personal security after Blackwood's death, but she had focused on ground-level threats. She never expected danger to come from above. Maya picked the apartment's lock with tools she had learned to use during her year of preparation. The deadbolt was high quality, but not impossible to defeat with patience and skill. She was inside Dr. Vance's home within 3 minutes. The apartment was luxurious, but sterile, decorated with expensive furniture that looked like it came from a catalog. Maya moved through the rooms methodically, looking for Dr. Vance's home office or any materials related to her work at Blackwood Industries. She found what she was looking for in a converted bedroom that served as Dr. Vance's private study. The walls were covered with degrees and awards, including several commendations from the Department of Defense. Maya felt sick looking at them. This woman had built her career on torturing children. The desk was covered with files and computer printouts. Maya photographed everything, adding to the evidence she would eventually release. Some documents detailed new experiments planned for other schools. The program hadn't ended with Danny's death, it had expanded. Maya heard the elevator chime in the hallway outside. Dr. Vance was home. She positioned herself behind the study door and waited. Dr. Vance entered the apartment talking loudly on her cell phone, discussing damage control strategies with someone at Blackwood Industries. She was worried about the impact of Maya's broadcast and the government investigations it would trigger. "We need to discredit the Chun woman immediately," Dr. Vance was saying. "Frame her as a terrorist or a foreign agent. The experimental data is too valuable to lose because of one unstable sister." Maya stepped out from behind the door as Dr. Vance entered the study. The scientist dropped her phone in shock, her face going pale as she recognized Maya from the news broadcasts. "Dr. Sarah Vance," Maya said calmly. "We need to talk about my brother." Dr. Vance backed toward the window, her hands raised defensively. "Look, I don't know what you think you know, but I know you designed the neural conditioning protocols used at Preston Academy," Maya interrupted. "I know you personally supervised the experiments on Danny and the other children. I know you recommended their elimination when they became too aware of what was being done to them." "That's not. You don't understand the bigger picture," Dr. Vance stammered. "Those children volunteered for a program that could revolutionize how we treat PTSD and other trauma disorders. Their sacrifice could save thousands of lives." Maya felt rage building in her chest. Even now, faced with the consequences of her actions, Dr. Vance was trying to justify the torture and murder of children. "Danny was 15 years old," Maya said through gritted teeth. "He didn't volunteer to have his mind destroyed. None of those kids did. You turned them into lab rats and then killed them when they fought back." Dr. Vance reached for something on her desk, probably a panic button or weapon. Maya raised the submachine gun and shook her head. "Don't. We're going to have a conversation about every child you hurt, every experiment you conducted, every death you caused, and then you're going to help me find the others." "What others?" Dr. Vance asked, though her expression suggested she already knew. "The other researchers, the other sites, the other children who are currently being experimented on." Maya's voice was cold and determined. "Because this program didn't die with Blackwood, did it? You have facilities in other cities, other schools, other victims." Dr. Vance's silence confirmed Maya's suspicions. The scope of Blackwood's operation was even larger than she had imagined. Somewhere out there, other children like Danny were being tortured in the name of science and national security. Maya pulled out a digital recorder and placed it on the desk between them. "Start talking, doctor. Tell me everything. Names, locations, current operations. Help me save the children you haven't killed yet, and maybe I'll let you live long enough to stand trial." Dr. Vance looked at the recorder, then at Maya's determined face, then at the weapon pointed at her chest. After a long moment, she began to speak. "There are 7 facilities total. Preston Academy was just the beginning." As Dr. Vance's confession began, Maya felt a mix of satisfaction and horror. She was finally getting the answers she needed, but each revelation made it clear that Danny's death was part of something far more monstrous than even she had imagined. The streets outside erupted with fresh sirens as news of Dr. Vance's capture reached the authorities. Maya's war against Blackwood Industries was far from over, but she now had the intelligence she needed to strike at the heart of their operation. The children deserved justice. All of them. And Maya would make sure they got it, no matter the cost. Dr. Vance's confession lasted 3 hours and filled 2 memory cards. By the time she finished talking, Maya had a complete picture of Blackwood Industries' human experimentation network. 7 facilities across 4 states, 43 researchers, and an estimated 200 children currently enrolled in various special programs. Maya sat in Dr. Vance's expensive leather chair, processing the magnitude of what she had uncovered. Danny's murder wasn't an isolated incident or even part of a small conspiracy. It was one casualty in an industrial-scale operation that treated brilliant children like disposable test subjects. The newest facility opened 6 months ago, Dr. Vance said, her voice hoarse from talking. It's disguised as a summer camp for gifted students in rural Montana. 30 kids, ages 12 to 16. The experiments there are more invasive than what we did at Preston Academy. Maya felt sick. While she had spent a year planning revenge for her brother, dozens more children had been subjected to the same torture that killed him. Every day she had delayed, more kids suffered. Who runs the Montana facility? Maya asked. Dr. James Crawford. He was Blackwood's protege, even more ruthless than Marcus. When you killed Blackwood, Crawford automatically assumed control of the entire program. Dr. Vance paused, studying Maya's face. He's also the one who gave the order to eliminate your brother. Maya's finger tightened on the submachine gun's trigger. This Crawford had personally ordered Danny's death. Maya memorized the name, adding it to her mental list of people who would answer for what they had done. Where can I find Crawford? Maya asked. He's paranoid about security. Never stays in one place long. Travels with a full protection detail. But he has a weakness. Dr. Vance leaned forward slightly. His daughter attends a private school in Washington, D.C. He visits her every Sunday afternoon. Same time, same route. Maya considered this information. Using Crawford's daughter as leverage would be the most efficient way to get to him. But it also crossed a line Maya wasn't sure she was ready to cross. The man was a monster who experimented on children, but his daughter was innocent. There's something else, Dr. Vance continued. The program is scheduled to expand dramatically next month. We've identified over 300 potential subjects at schools across the country. Blackwood signed the contracts before you killed him. Unless someone stops it, those children will be brought into the program within weeks. Maya stood up and walked to the window overlooking the city. Below, she could see news vans and police cars still clustered around the site of Blackwood's assassination. Her actions had exposed the conspiracy, but they had also accelerated its timeline. The people running the program knew their window was closing. How do I stop it? Maya asked. The control servers are located at Blackwood's primary research facility outside Baltimore. Everything runs through that location: funding, personnel assignments, experimental protocols. If those servers were destroyed, the entire network would collapse. Dr. Vance described the Baltimore facility in detail. It was a fortress-like complex surrounded by multiple layers of security. Military-grade fencing, armed guards, surveillance systems, and underground bunkers designed to survive a nuclear attack. Getting inside would require more than Maya's sniper skills and careful planning. There's a way in, Dr. Vance said quietly. Every month, they transport new subjects to the facility for advanced conditioning. The next transport is scheduled for this Saturday. If you could intercept it. Maya turned back toward Dr. Vance. You want me to rescue a busload of children from armed guards, and then somehow use them to infiltrate a military compound? Not rescue them. Replace yourself with one of them. Dr. Vance pulled out a tablet and showed Maya personnel files for the transport mission. The children are heavily sedated during transport. With the right drugs and documentation, you could take the place of one of the subjects. Once inside the facility, you'd have access to the control servers. It was a desperate plan with a dozen ways to fail, but Maya could see the logic. Getting into the Baltimore facility from the outside was nearly impossible. But if she could get inside as a supposed test subject, she might have a chance to destroy the servers and free the children currently being held there. What about the real children in the transport? Maya asked. Divert the bus to a hospital. Call in an anonymous tip about a medical emergency. The kids will be safe, and it will take hours for Blackwood's people to figure out what happened. By then, you'll already be inside their facility. Maya spent the next hour extracting every detail about the transport operation from Dr. Vance. The bus would leave Preston Academy at 8 a.m. Saturday morning, carrying 12 sedated children to the Baltimore facility. The route was predetermined. with minimal security because the operation was designed to look like a routine school field trip. As Dr. Vance talked, Maya recorded everything on her digital device. This information would be crucial for the final phase of her campaign against Blackwood Industries. "Why are you helping me?" Maya asked when they finished going over the transport details. Dr. Vance was quiet for a long moment. "Because I have children too," she finally said. "Twin boys, 8 years old. When I started this work, I told myself we were serving a greater purpose. Advancing science, protecting national security. But, tonight, listening to myself describe what we did to your brother." She trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. Maya wasn't interested in Dr. Vance's guilt or attempts at redemption. The woman had spent years torturing children and justifying it as research. But Maya needed her cooperation for the plan to work. "You're going to help me get inside that facility," Maya said. "And, when this is over, you're going to testify about everything you've done. Full confession, every detail, every victim." Dr. Vance nodded. "What about my protection? Crawford will have me killed if he suspects I'm cooperating with you." "That's not my problem," Maya replied coldly. "You should have thought about the consequences before you started experimenting on children." Maya spent the rest of the night at Dr. Vance's apartment, using the scientist's computer to research the Baltimore facility and plan her infiltration. The complex was enormous, covering several square miles of heavily wooded land. The main research building was a concrete monolith that looked more like a prison than a laboratory. Satellite images showed multiple guard towers, patrol routes, and what appeared to be underground structures connected to the main building. Maya counted at least 50 vehicles in the facility's parking areas, far more security personnel than would be needed for a simple research operation. Dr. Vance provided additional intelligence about the facility's internal layout. The control servers were located in a sub-basement, 3 levels below ground, and protected by multiple security checkpoints. The children were held in a separate wing, also underground, in what the staff euphemistically called residential pods. "How many kids are currently held there?" Maya asked. "Approximately 60, ranging in age from 11 to 17. They're all high-value subjects, exceptional intelligence, specific psychological profiles, minimal family connections." Dr. Vance paused. "Like your brother." Maya studied floor plans and security protocols until dawn. The plan that emerged was ambitious and dangerous, requiring precise timing and more than a little luck. But it was her best chance to destroy the servers and rescue the children before the program could expand to hundreds more victims. Saturday morning came too quickly. Maya left DR. Vance tied up in her apartment with a note explaining that she would be released once Maya completed her mission. She took the doctor's security credentials, research files, and a supply of the sedative drugs used in the transport operation. Maya drove a stolen van to a location along the transport route, arriving 2 hours before the bus was scheduled to pass. She had selected an isolated stretch of rural highway where she could intercept the vehicle without witnesses. At exactly 10:15 a.m., the bus appeared on the horizon. It looked like any school bus, yellow with Preston Academy logos on the sides. Maya waited until it reached the predetermined spot, then activated the spike strip she had laid across the road. The bus's tires exploded with a series of loud pops. The driver managed to bring the vehicle to a controlled stop without injury, but both he and the armed guard riding shotgun were quickly subdued by Maya's tranquilizer darts. Maya worked quickly to transfer the sedated children from the bus to her van. 12 kids, all unconscious, all roughly Danny's age when he died. She drove them to the nearest hospital and called in an anonymous report of a medical emergency, then returned to the bus. Using Dr. Vance's credentials and a forged medical bracelet, Maya took the place of one of the children, a girl whose physical build roughly matched her own. The sedatives Dr. Vance had provided would keep her unconscious during the journey to Baltimore, making the deception easier to maintain. Maya injected herself with a carefully calculated dose and lay down on one of the bus's bench seats. As the drug took effect, she felt her consciousness fading. Her last clear thought was of Danny and the promise she had made to get justice for him and all the other victims. Maya woke up in darkness, lying on a narrow bed in what felt like a concrete cell. Her head was foggy from the sedatives, but her memory of the plan remained clear. She was inside the Baltimore facility, disguised as a test subject, with access to the entire complex. Dim light filtered through a small window in the cell door. Maya sat up carefully, testing her reflexes and coordination. The drugs were still in her system, but she could function well enough to move around. The hallway outside her cell was lined with similar doors, each presumably containing another child. Maya counted 24 cells in her immediate area, which meant this was only a fraction of the facility's total capacity. The scope of the operation was even larger than Dr. Vance had indicated. Maya had memorized the facility's layout from the blueprints Dr. Vance provided. The control servers were 3 levels down from her current location, accessible through a maintenance tunnel that connected to the facility's ventilation system. She needed to reach those servers and plant the explosives she had concealed in her clothes. Moving quietly, Maya picked the lock on her cell door and slipped into the hallway. Emergency lighting provided just enough illumination to navigate without triggering motion sensors. She found the maintenance access panel Dr. Vance had described and began her descent toward the server room. The ventilation tunnels were cramped and disorienting, but Maya forced herself to move methodically. Getting lost in this maze would doom her mission and leave the children trapped in their cells. She followed the mental map Dr. Vance had helped her create, counting junction points and measuring distances. After 20 minutes of crawling through the narrow passages, Maya reached the server room. Through a ventilation grate, she could see rows of computer equipment humming quietly in the darkness. This was the nerve center of Blackwood's entire operation. Maya carefully removed the grate and dropped into the server room. The explosives she carried were small but powerful, designed to destroy electronic equipment without bringing down the building. She began placing charges at key points throughout the room, setting timers to detonate in 30 minutes. That would give her time to return to the children's wing and begin evacuation procedures. Maya had studied the facility's fire safety protocols and knew that certain alarms would automatically unlock all cell doors and activate emergency lighting. She could use that system to free the children and guide them to safety. As Maya worked, she found herself thinking about Danny and the journal entries that had revealed his suffering. Her brother had died trying to expose this place and the people who ran it. Now Maya was finishing the work he had started, ensuring that no more children would suffer as he had. The timer on the last explosive showed 25 minutes remaining when Maya heard footsteps in the corridor outside the server room. Someone was coming, probably for a routine security check. Maya quickly climbed back into the ventilation system and began making her way toward the children's wing. She reached the residential area with 15 minutes to spare. Maya activated the fire alarm system using an emergency panel, and immediately the hallway filled with flashing lights and automated announcements. Cell doors began unlocking automatically as children started emerging, confused and frightened. "Listen to me," Maya called out over the alarm system. "My name is Maya-chan, and I'm here to get you out of this place. Follow me and stay together. We're going to safety." Some of the children recognized her name from the news broadcasts that had been circulating for the past week. They seemed to understand that Maya was there to rescue them, not harm them. The group began moving together toward the facility's emergency exits. Maya led 63 children through the underground corridors as the first explosions began rocking the building. The server room charges detonated right on schedule, sending shockwaves through the concrete structure and knocking out all the facility's computer systems. Emergency lighting flickered as Maya guided the children up stairwells toward ground level. She could hear security personnel shouting and running through other parts of the building, but the fire alarm system was routing everyone toward different exits. Maya's group reached the main lobby without encountering any guards. Outside, fire trucks and ambulances were already arriving in response to the automatic alarm system. Maya had anticipated this and called several news outlets before infiltrating the facility, ensuring that reporters would be on scene to document the rescue and prevent Blackwood's people from covering up the incident. As the children were led to safety by paramedics, Maya slipped away from the crowd. Her mission was complete. The servers controlling Blackwood's network had been destroyed, the children were free, and the world now had undeniable proof of the industrial-scale child abuse that had been occurring. Maya found a quiet spot on a hill overlooking the facility and pulled out her phone. She had one final message to broadcast, a closing statement for the campaign that had consumed the last year of her life. "This is Maya Chun," she said to the camera. "1 week ago, I killed Marcus Blackwood to avenge my brother Danny and 3 other children who died at Preston Academy. Tonight, I destroyed the servers that controlled a network of 7 facilities where over 200 children were being used as test subjects for illegal psychological experiments." Maya held up Dr. Vance's confession recordings and the evidence files she had compiled. "Everything is documented. Every facility, every researcher, every victim. The people responsible for these crimes are identified by name, and their confessions are preserved on servers around the world." Behind her, smoke continued rising from the Baltimore facility as fire crews worked to contain the damage from the explosions. The 63 children Maya had rescued were being evaluated by medical personnel and would soon be reunited with their families. "The children are safe now," Maya continued. "The experimental programs have been shut down. Justice has been served for Danny and all the other victims. But this story doesn't end with me. Every parent, teacher, and community leader needs to remain vigilant. Powerful people will always try to exploit vulnerable children unless we make it clear that such crimes will not be tolerated." Maya ended the recording and transmitted it to news outlets around the world. Within hours, the story would dominate international headlines and trigger investigations across multiple countries. The evidence she had gathered would ensure that everyone involved in Blackwood's programs faced prosecution. As dawn broke over the smoking ruins of the research facility, Maya felt a sense of completion she hadn't experienced since Danny's death. Her brother's murder had been avenged, the children were free, and the world now knew the truth about what had been done to them. Maya walked down the hill toward the road, where she would disappear into the crowd of emergency responders and reporters. There would undoubtedly be a massive manhunt for her in the coming weeks, but she had planned for that possibility. New identities, safe houses, and escape routes had all been prepared during her year of preparation. But first, Maya had one more stop to make. She drove to the cemetery where Danny was buried and knelt beside his grave as the sun rose over the city skyline. "It's over," she whispered to the headstone. "They can never hurt anyone else the way they hurt you. Justice was served, just like I promised." Maya placed a copy of Dr. Vance's confession on Danny's grave, along with a list of all the children who had been rescued. Her brother's death had not been meaningless. It had exposed a conspiracy that might otherwise have continued for years, destroying hundreds more young lives. From a silent rooftop, Maya had taken down more than just a convoy. She had dismantled an entire network of corruption and cruelty. The streets had exploded in panic, but from that chaos, justice had finally emerged. Danny would have been proud.